Dinner was loud in the way it always was, overlapping voices, plates shifting, someone laughing before the joke had even finished. I remember thinking briefly that it felt almost normal. I said it without planning to. Can't wait for the family reunion. It wasn't even directed at anyone in particular. Just something to fill the space, to stay inside it. My brother didn't hesitate. He laughed, sharp, immediate. You're not invited, it's for real family. There was a pause, just long enough for the words to land, and then the table followed him. Not loudly, not cruelly, just easily, like it made sense. I smiled. It felt like the right response. Not forced, just practiced. No one looked at me to check how it landed. The conversation moved on, folding over itself, and I let it. I stayed a few minutes longer, long enough not to make it obvious, then stood up quietly and said I had an early morning. No one stopped me. Outside, the air felt different. Not colder, just clearer. I sat in my car for a while before starting it, replaying the moment, not the words themselves, but how natural they sounded, how no one questioned them. It wasn't new. That was the part that settled in slowly. 4 days passed without much contact. A few messages in the family group chat about travel plans, photos of packed bags, casual updates. No one mentioned what happened. I didn't either. Then my phone buzzed with a bank alert, a withdrawal attempt. Declined 2400. I stared at it, confused at first, then checked the account details. It was linked to a secondary access I'd set up years ago, something practical at the time, easier for emergencies, easier for them. I opened the app and saw the attempt timestamped just minutes earlier. No message, no call beforehand. Just the assumption. I sat there for a while, the phone still in my hand, noticing how quickly my mind started to fill in the gaps. They needed money. They expected it to be there. They didn't think to ask because they never had to. My thumb hovered over the settings. I knew exactly where to go. I'd seen it before, thought about it before, just never followed through access permissions. Remove confirm. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt overdue. Then I took a screenshot of the declined transaction. I opened a message thread with my dad. Not the group chat, just him. Payment denied. Must be that family-only policy. I read it once before sending. It didn't feel sharp, just accurate. He saw it almost immediately. No response. A few minutes later, my brother started typing in the group chat, then stopped, then started again. Nothing came through. By evening, the silence had shifted. It wasn't absence anymore. It was tension waiting for somewhere to go. I kept my phone nearby, but didn't check it constantly. I went through the rest of my day as usual, noticing small things more than usual. The sound of the kettle, the way the light came through the window, the quiet in my apartment. It felt steadier than I expected. 2 days later, the knock came, not hesitant. Not aggressive, just firm enough to be unmistakable. I knew who it was before I reached the door. For a second, I stood there without moving, listening to the space between knocks. Then I opened it. My dad stood there, my brother just behind him. Neither of them looked angry exactly, just unsettled, like something had gone off script. You didn't have to do that, my dad said. Not greeting, not asking how I was. I nodded slightly, more to acknowledge the words than agree with them. There was a pause. You could just said something, my brother added, his tone tighter. I looked at both of them, noticing how familiar this felt. The expectation that I would explain, soften, adjust. I did, I said quietly. They didn't respond right away. My dad shifted his weight slightly, glancing past me into the apartment like he was trying to reorient himself. It was just temporary, he said. We were going to sort it out. I believed that, not because it was true in any structured way, but because that's how it had always worked. Things happened first, then they were sorted out later. Usually by me, I stepped slightly to the side, not inviting them in, just creating space. I'm not part of the reunion, I said, keeping my voice even. So it makes sense. It wasn't confrontational. It wasn't defensive. It just fit. My brother exhaled sharply like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the angle. This isn't the same thing, he said. I didn't answer. The silence stretched, but it didn't feel unstable, just unfamiliar. After a moment, my dad nodded once, a small, contained movement. All right, he said. Not agreement, not acceptance, just acknowledgement. They didn't stay much longer. There wasn't much else to say that didn't circle back into something I'd already stepped out of. When they left, the hallway felt quieter than usual. I closed the door and stood there for a moment, my hand still on the handle. There was no sense of victory. If anything, it felt like something had been removed rather than gained. I walked back into the living room and sat down, the same place I usually did. My phone was on the table, screen dark, no new messages. I thought about the reunion, not the event itself, but the idea of it. A space I had assumed I belonged to, even when the signals said otherwise. That assumption was gone now. In its place, there was something less comfortable, but more stable. I didn't have to interpret anything anymore. I leaned back slightly, letting the quiet settle in. It wasn't relief, but it wasn't confusion either. And for the first time in a long while, that felt enough.